everyone, and welcome to this episode of Waynesboro at Work. I'm your host, Brooke Anderson, and this is a podcast where we interview Waynesboro entrepreneurs and business leaders to learn more about the origin stories of their business, the passion for the work they do, ways they interact with the community, and a whole lot more. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by An Stanley, the owner of Pyramid, Appalachian Magick, and Remedy, a brick and mortar store in Waynesboro, Virginia. So An, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me. So I am really fascinated by what you do there. And I think your name kind of speaks to what is happening there at Pyramid. Pyramid, Appalachian Magick, and Remedy. So can you explain for people that might not be exactly sure what you do, what's going on at the store?
Sure. So, more or less, it is a metaphysical shop. But within that name, I really prefer to focus on practices that are, native to our area. That could include a variety of tools. Sometimes it's a garden shovel, sometimes it's a crystal ball, sometimes it's a pack of playing cards. And other times it's, freshly grown herbs, or just, a hiking stick to get out there and find them yourself. So yeah, at the end of the day, it is a metaphysical shop with a focus on, wouldn't you know it, Appalachian Magick and Remedy.
Perfect. And so Appalachian Magick and Remedy, we can deduce what the Appalachian part comes from, but can you explain a little bit more about the magic and the remedy part of it?
Yeah. So the magic portion it's like what I use as a catch-all phrase.
Okay.
We have a lot of practitioners in the area from all different backgrounds, all different religions, spiritualities. And some terms that, are colloquially used now don't necessarily apply to everybody involved. You can't call everyone a witch. So the magical portion applies to a broader spectrum of people. It could be, someone getting into something like earth magic. It could be a gardener. It could be, it could be your wife. You just never know.
Right.
And the remedy portion, like I said before, we do focus on, or at least we try to focus on, local remedies, things that are tried and true. Ingredients like sassafras and pine tar and stinging nettles. Simple things like even just like honey, all used to treat a variety of ailments naturally and homeopathically.
Right. In this area, I think a lot of us can relate in this area and even beyond to some of the natural remedies that we have noticed, our grandmother uses or our parents use. So the connection between what you do there at the store and what people may be familiar with in their own families is not necessarily so different. Is that right?
Exactly that. A lot of the times, my regulars, even a lot of new people who have been coming in this year, they're really just trying to tap into what it was their grandmother, their great grandmother did. They want access to that knowledge because for whatever reason, the information wasn't passed on.
Right.
And we're in the midst of seeing a big boom of sharing that inherited knowledge. So Pyramid is there to help facilitate that. Do we have all the answers there? No, but we can help you find it.
Right. And so people at varying levels of interest can come and find, products and resources and educational things, at Pyramid, it sounds like.
You can buy soap and candles if that's all you want. Like,
Sure.
We have a ton of locally made products. Like, we have stuffed animals right now that are locally made. So
Awesome.
We have a lot of gifty things, and then a lot of, the more interesting things.
Sure. So one of the things that I noticed about Pyramid is you have such a strong connection with various vendors and artisans from the area. Why is that such an important part of your business model?
Because that's how I started out. I've been making candles since I was 21, 22. And I put my product up in shops like mine, into brick and mortars that were family owned or independently owned. And they allowed me to, not just a platform, but a voice to get my stuff out there, and into the hands of our locals. I grew up fortunately with the internet, and Etsy was a big thing. So selling online was pretty reasonable territory for me at a young age. It was marketing to a local community that was hard. So I believe that having a platform from which people can launch themselves is one of the most important things you can do, for others as a business owner, just providing that space for other people to grow and hopefully start their own business.
Right. And one of the things that you participated in was the Grow Waynesboro competition, which actually shares that sort of mission that you just spoke about. What was your experience like in that Grow Waynesboro competition?
Oh, it was terrible. No, it was incredible. What I had was a very broad idea of what I wanted to do. And what Grow Waynesboro did is they helped me really hone in that idea into what is essentially a business plan, which was invaluable to me, because most people, when they look at a business plan, they're like, I don't know. So not only did they provide the education and guidance, but having the voices of other local business owners give their 2 cents, and being able to connect with city officials and other business owners again, was invaluable. Really, they were the start of my, I guess, community outreach before I had even opened.
Right. Yeah, that sort of community feel is so important to new entrepreneurs and even seasoned entrepreneurs as you go along in your process, for sure. And one of the things that I'm always interested in is where a person's entrepreneurial spirit comes from. And I've heard a variety of stories. So for you, where does that entrepreneurial spirit come from? Were you a kid with a lemonade stand? Were you always sort of thinking that you would own your own business one day?
So yes, I was the kid with a lemonade stand. And I always had like these grandiose, not all children, most children, they have a grandiose idea of what they want to be when they grow up. And I always wanted to have like some sort of shop. Did I think it was going to be a metaphysical one? No, I had no idea. But really, I think it all comes down to, it's something that was learned generationally. So my grandmother moved here from Vietnam, first generation, and she opened up a nail salon, and she still owns that nail salon.
Nice.
So I think growing up in an environment where I had to work from a very young age, for a family business, and then having my parents both open up their own businesses as well. Some of them were brick and mortars, and just having a hand in all of that and seeing all the work that went into it, but how rewarding it was in the end, I think really solidified my entrepreneurial spirit.
Nice. And you're not originally from this area, but you were drawn to this area. And one of the things that I actually learned from you, which I think is truly fascinating, is that you had kind of looked into the history of the Shenandoah Valley and how it's actually the same mountain range as the Scottish Highlands. So can you tell me a little bit more about that and what else sort of drew you to this area?
Yeah. So brief geography lesson. So back when all the continents were actually one large continent called Pangea, we had the Appalachian mountain range. Now, when all these continents split, it just so happened that a portion of that mountain range ended up where Scotland is now. So we do share the oldest mountain range in the world with Scotland, which is really awesome. It's also interesting to find, I'm always studying, the geography, the anthropology of the area. One, not only because it's fascinating to find that cultural blend from Scotland to here, but all the cultures that are here as well. We're talking about BIPOC communities, Indigenous Americans, Black folks, and how it became like this melting pot of culture. And I think the icing on the cake for me after I had moved out here was finding out that I have blood ties to the mountain range.
Wow.
I did some research on my dad's side and found out some of our ancestry there and realized that, I didn't grow up here, but it's interesting to find that I was drawn to it for such a long time.
Nice. Yeah, it is fascinating how we sometimes feel what we think is an unexplained connection to a certain area, and then come to find out we have a direct connection in some way. Yeah, I love hearing about those stories. I know that the diversity of the area of Waynesboro in particular was really important to you in choosing to move here and then have your shop here. Why is diversity so important to you?
Well, diversity, it is important to me. One, because of who I am, like I'm a diverse person.
Mm-hmm.
And everywhere I've lived on both ends of the country. Diversity is something that it keeps everything going. It keeps cultures moving. It keeps people on a trajectory of momentum.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe diversity and inclusion is not only just the future for our country. I think it's the future of business. You cannot be an island amongst yourself. You can't surround yourself with, well, I mean, you can surround yourself with an echo chamber, but it's not going to end up very well.
Right.
So I think that diversity is just the inevitable progress of where we need to be.
Right. So important for sure. One of the things that is interesting about the day and age that we're in right now is that as sort of the collective humanity, we all have a common experience that we're going through, which is COVID-19. Um, I was thinking about that particularly in regards to what you do, because so much of it is kind of connecting like body, mind, and spirit. And that's something I think that's on a lot of people's minds is how do we take good care of body, mind, and spirit in a time that is so incredibly stressful and uncertain for so many people. Um, so kind of leaning on your expertise, what advice do you have for people in kind of having good self-care at a point in time when things are so stressful?
So I'm going to simplify my answer with a metaphor from one of my favorite authors, Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Vietnamese Buddhist. So I'll start with vulnerability. We are all at a time of not just turmoil, but healing from turmoil, whether that was last year or, 20 years ago. We're all in this state of, kind of coming to terms with that. So my favorite, I guess, way to describe that is, you're sitting in your living room, right? And you're holding this object and you're not really ready to get rid of it. You don't want it, but you're not ready to let it go. So you put it in your basement. And eventually you just keep putting things into your basement that you don't want to deal with. So you're sitting there in your living room one day and all of a sudden the basement door flies open and all of this crap just spills out into your living room floor. And now you have to deal with it. So that's kind of like a roundabout way of saying like, if we've come to a point where there's no more room in our basement and our subconscious for the things we don't want to deal with. So my advice would be pick it up one at a time, study that object again, and figure out if you're willing to let it go. And vulnerability is the key to doing that. And, really just being true to your whole self, not just your pretty living room self.
Right, exactly. Acknowledging, just like you said, your whole self. I've heard that phrased as what you don't release gets stored. So, it definitely makes you think about how important releasing is, and we can't release what we don't acknowledge. So, definitely that certainly resonates with me, and I'm sure most of our listening audience, as we all try to navigate this very trying time that we're going through. So that's kind of the body, mind, and spirit connection that people are going through with COVID. And then, of course, entrepreneurs like yourself are having to deal with very practical implications of being business owners during a pandemic. So how has it been to be a business owner during a pandemic? How has that been for you?
I've been blessed. I've been very fortunate. Last year in January, I did a marketing trends of 2020 class for the city. I held it right over at Heritage. We had about 30 so entrepreneurs, different speakers came, and we really talked about, the big thing we talked about was getting your small business online, and changing the way people can access you. And then April hit and it all came to a really quick reality. I was lucky enough because I had already been doing those things because that's how I started my business. But I guess for me, aside from that, the day I was supposed to celebrate my 1-year anniversary of being open, I actually had to close my doors to the public for 2 months.
Wow.
So that was bittersweet, but I worked around it. I posted everything online. I had sales. We had store pickups. So I know it's been difficult, and I'm so sad to see so many businesses having to shut down or go into more in debt just to stay afloat. But I've been really blessed with a very supportive community. The city's been very helpful. And, I think the hardest thing is just keeping people's masks on their faces and covering up the nose. Cover up your nose, people. I don't like reminding people of that. It makes me feel bad. So don't make me do it.
That's right. The things we have to think about now, proper mask wearing, for sure, for sure. So, certainly right now there are unique challenges for people thinking about starting a business. And as somebody that's, been there and you're doing it, what are your best pieces of advice for people that are thinking about launching something?
So my answer to that is loaded with dichotomy, because it's always a balance of what you're going to have to do. And the first thing is, cut out the naysayers. Don't listen to the people who, are like, oh, that's a great idea, but, or, what you should do is, stop listening to those people and start surrounding yourself with the people who not only believe in you, but vocalize it. They tell others. Surround yourself with the people who want you to do well. And that's really it.
Right, right. You actually told me an interesting story that I think your dad told you. It sort
Yeah.
of illustrates that point. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. When at a young age, my dad's from all over, but mostly he's from Texas. So some of his colloquialisms are really fun. But when I was really young and I came home from school one day and I was really downtrodden. And he gave me this, he's like, don't let the crabs pull you back into the pot. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And it's kind of a morbid analogy, but here we are. So when you put a bunch of crabs into a stock pot, they just want to climb out. Their goal is to get out of the boiling water. And eventually one crab will get to the top, and as soon as he starts pulling himself out, another crab will grab his back leg and pull him back down. Mm. It's not because they want the crab to boil with them, it's because they're trying to get out too. So my advice, I guess my dad's advice would be, don't let the crabs bring you back down.
I think I will honestly remember that from this day forward. I love that story so much, and I can picture this pot in my mind and these crabs, and it makes so much sense. So
it sticks, and it's harder because I'm like vegetarian, so I'm like thinking this horrible analogy, and I'm like, oh my god, those poor crabs.
Right, these figurative crabs, we'll say. That's what we'll say. So I know that you are a trained herbalist. Where did your interest in that come from?
In my backyard when I was 8.
Where all good ideas start. I mean,
yeah,
really.
Or the bad ones. Most of them were really horrible ideas. And, once I started, getting into grade school and taking those little chemistry classes, you find, what if I mix flour with Windex? Like, what'll that do? Like, always keep your cabinets locked. Kids will always find a way in. Lock your cabinets, because I certainly did. So I started mixing things up in the kitchen. I've always kind of like been a mixologist. I like the chemical reaction. Yeah. And then when I was older, I did go to school for a little bit for massage. And, we talked about essential oils and herbs and skin sensitivities. And I think that really fine-tuned where I wanted to take that mixology, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, it's interesting how so often some of the how tied we are so often to the things that we were interested in as kids, and a lot of times with entrepreneurs that I talk with, their life somehow circles back around to those like 8-year-old backyard moments.
That's where I'm at right now. I'm literally foraging in my backyard in the spring for the same ingredients. Like, yes. It has come full circle.
Your 8-year-old self would be so proud. So I know, COVID-19 has pivoted some things for you. I know that a big part of what you were doing before were some like educational classes, which were a good entry point for people that wanted to explore some of the offerings that you had there at Pyramid. What do you see for the future bringing those back, or what do you see as sort of the next evolution of Pyramid?
So the next evolution has really been hinging on this private community we've been building within our valley. Mm-hmm. We have over 700 members now, and because we're not able to see each other and have those classes and have the fun parties and get-togethers and cookouts that I had planned this year, we've kind of turned to like community outreach. We do a lot of crowd funds. We do a lot of charities. We did a private food drive last winter. And we're building like a library of resources, so people have access to, free knowledge. Mm-hmm. So the future of Pyramid for me, I know I'm a brick and mortar retail, but to be completely honest, I would love to see Pyramid at a trajectory that is more for community development and humanitarian rights. I'd love to I always say it to people who listen. I don't care if my business fails, because Pyramid will always sustain itself, because I've chosen to focus on people and individuals and community and knowledge. You can't stomp that out. So hopefully we'll be going a little bit more public with some of the community service endeavors we've been working on.
Nice. Yeah, one of the quotes that comes to mind is, business, or people don't do business with businesses, they do business with people. And just like you said, like that people to people connection is really what sustains, and the education piece is so important. So we all look forward to learning more about those endeavors that you're doing. And thank you so much for joining me today and sharing not just your entrepreneurial knowledge, but just your life wisdom. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. And thank you for all that you guys are doing to support entrepreneurs and small business and giving us a voice. That's really important. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And if anybody is watching and wants to learn more information about On Story or any of the entrepreneurs that we have interviewed, please visit the websites and social media channels of Visit Waynesboro, Grow Waynesboro, and Waynesboro Economic Development. You'll be able to find this podcast on YouTube, all of the podcast channels that you prefer to listen to, and on those websites that I mentioned. Thank you so much for watching, and we will be back soon with another Waynesboro entrepreneur.